1991, we did have a big tax reform. It was an agreement between the Social Democratic government at the time and the Liberal Party in Parliament. And it was, before that, we had very high marginal tax rates on labor income. So what we basically did was to do a shift. So we reduced the marginal tax rates on labor income, reduced the number of other taxes as well, and then we increased and had the general VAT level, so the same VAT level on all goods and services, and then we introduced the carbon tax. So this was a tax reform, lowering taxes on labor income, increasing taxes on consumption and on environmental on the environment. So the CO2 tax has then later been increased continuously through many governments, and there is always some party protesting when you increase it, but then the next year everyone is accepting it. And we increased it again last year, my government, and then we also introduced an index. So earlier it has been indexed with inflation, but now we're also indexing with potential GDP growth. So the carbon tax is increased by inflation plus 2% in order to have the same, as when we grow richer, well then also we want to have the same effect on of the CO2 tax. What we have seen since the 90s that we have reduced our CO2 emissions. At the same time, we've had quite a high growth. So we've had the absolute decoupling. So there is, we have broken the connection between increased CO2 emissions and growth. That is our experience. And this is, of course, the CO2 tax is only paid by the part of the business that is not, or of the economy that's not part of the EU trading scheme. For the EU trading scheme, we have a very low tax. Instead, they are part of that trading scheme. We are working in the European Union to have a fewer amounts of possibilities to emit. We think it's a too generous system. So we are working within the EU to lobby for a stricter emission system. But we also introduced a program when we, from the Swedish government side, is actually buying emission possibilities and then cancel them in order to have a stricter emission trading system in Sweden. And we're also trying to invite companies and other countries to join in this system. So we're trying to do more, both when it comes to on the national level, on the EU level, and then on top of that, we are also working on the global level, where we are financing the Green Climate Fund. We're one of the largest contributors. But we're also doing some others, so that's emissions. But then we're also trying to do in other areas. We're trying to fight both climate change, but also reduce emissions of chemicals. We have introduced a new tax on chemicals in our mobile phones and TVs and video game stations. And it will be introduced 1st of January. We also reduced the VAT on repairing shoes, clothes, and bags. And also on repairing like fridges, freezers, washing machines, dishwashers, in order to promote recycling. Rather than buy new things, throw the old things out and buy new things, we try to promote circular economy and recycling, to reuse our things over and over again. So that's, and is this a public acceptance? I think yes. I mean, the trade unions are not protesting against our policies. Of course, the industry and I mean, they're part of the emission trading scheme, whereas the transports have to be paid. The transportation has to pay the CO2 tax. So, of course, there are discussions with the industry and the business when it comes to the CO2 tax.
Thank you.
Particularly for transportation.
Thank you. So,
just let me say one word. It's not the main reason not to introduce CO2 taxes in Austria. The main reason is the